At the Get Well Clinic, about half the patients said that melatonin helped or it slightly helped, and about half said it didn't work out whatsoever. And this sort of mimics what other clinicians have found, that melatonin is not really an insomnia aid. Let me repeat that. Melatonin is not a sedative insomnia aid. What melatonin is for resetting the internal time clock. So it's best used for shift workers like night workers or people who work in factories at night, like all night, what they call the graveyard shift, or people with jet lag. And I researched the melatonin jet lag treatment because I often travel to other countries in Europe and Asia. And what it involves is, I believe you start out the first night going to bed an hour, depending on which way you fly. If you fly east or west, you either go to bed an hour earlier or an hour later than you usually do. But then just before you're getting ready to fly, you're like getting to bed or going to bed 3 hours earlier or 3 hours later. There is no way Andrew could do that before a flight. There's just too much to do. So I found that melatonin was not very much of a use to me, and I've always liked herbal products. Of course, I'm an herbalist, but I've always been concerned because melatonin, is a hormone, and I'm just concerned about taking hormones long term. So today we'll be discussing melatonin, and we'll answer the question: is it addicting or not? If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and be sure to hit the alert button to be notified of new videos each week. And so I first want to talk to you about Eric. Eric's somebody who used melatonin for about 5 years. He used it while he was in graduate school because he was having trouble falling asleep. Now, remember, this is not the best use of melatonin. This is the best use of sedative herbs like valerian. So he basically started taking it for 5 years to in order to fall asleep, and he found he just couldn't get off of it. He tried to cut the pills or the gummies in half or the pills in half, and that didn't work, and he spent a couple nights where he was just tossing and turning, missing the melatonin. Finally, he went to a sleep specialist, and the sleep specialist said, "Cut out the melatonin and use cognitive behavioral therapy instead." So, of the non-drug approaches to insomnia, cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the better ones. And there's actually classes online if that's something you're interested to do. So, I want to get the question right out of the way. Is melatonin addicting? No, it's not, but it is habit forming. And there was a doctor who said you can become physiologically dependent upon tic tacs if you believe you have to have them. So there's a whole area of people can get dependent on sleep drugs, sleep herbs, melatonin, and they feel that they need to take it. And if a person feels like they need to take melatonin, like I say, well, what integrative physician or what naturopath has recommended melatonin to you? And they go, none. I go, are you in a research project program for melatonin to study melatonin? No. I go, "Well, why don't you go off the melatonin and use an herbal aid?" And I think I might have mentioned I like valerian. It's probably my number one insomnia herbal aid, and then number two is homeopathy because that's so safe. So I would prefer that people use other things rather than melatonin. But on the other side, you have to know that there's research going on right now showing that melatonin may help build up the mitochondria, and it also may have some anti-cancer activity. Now, that's really exciting, but I would strongly suggest if you use melatonin to use it with somebody who really understands how to use it, and that would be a naturopath or a holistic or integrative physician. Some herbalists know about melatonin, others don't. But the reason you might want to select an herbalist is typically they're less expensive than the other practitioners, and they would get you right away to recommend an alternative. You could say, well, Mr. or Mrs. Herbalist, could you please recommend some sedative herbs instead of melatonin? And they could probably help you out with that. So it's really what it's not addicting, but people feel it's an anxiety that maybe I can't sleep without my melatonin. And so let's look at how melatonin works. Well, as I might have mentioned earlier, melatonin is a hormone that's produced in the pineal gland. And what the job of my melatonin, so it is a natural substance, it's in all of us, it regulates the sleep wake cycle. And so after the sun sets, darkness triggers the body to secrete melatonin. And that's why people started using it as a sleep aid. And so it's basically supplements what your body does naturally, but and there are studies that show that melatonin modestly helps people fall asleep faster, but it's not much more than a placebo. A placebo is a sugar pill that's believed to not have any pharmacological or energetic activity. It's basically a dummy pill. Sometimes they call it a sugar pill because sometimes the placebo is made out of sugar pills. Now, what you should know is that almost all sleep treatments perform not that much better than a placebo. So, in addition to being dangerous long term, Ambien, again, is only shown in clinical studies to help people get 20 minutes extra of sleep. In the studies they did with melatonin, people were getting 7 minutes extra sleep a night. To me, that's not a lot. And that's why when we were really working in the clinic with people with chronic sleep disorders, we would basically look at their constitution. We measure constitution by looking at a person's tongue and measuring their pulse. And then we would select a constitutional formula during the day and then fast acting herbs at night to help them go to sleep. And the combination herbs during the day and a different set of herbs at night, we got some of the best results in the Bay Area with insomnia, best non-drug results with insomnia. So I want to give you this idea as we close that a practitioner can be very, very useful to decide, is melatonin appropriate for me, or is it totally safe? It would be certainly good to go to a natural practitioner if you feel that melatonin is not working. And you might want to just go out to the integrative pharmacy or the health food store and try either valerian or a homeopathic remedy for sleep, or one of the sleep remedies that we talked about in the other podcasts we've done. So I want to end by talking about some of the tips if you do decide to use melatonin. And the first tip is that dosage is all over the place. My colleague, who's been a naturopath for over 20 years, has his best results starting people at 0.5 milligram of melatonin a day. The Cleveland Clinic recommends 1 milligram a day of melatonin, and many of the products are 3 to 5 milligrams a day of melatonin. And then for experimental use, it's 15 or even 25 milligrams. But again, that dosage should only be done under practitioner supervision. Sleep hygiene is very, very important to insomnia treatment. And remember to take your herbs or your melatonin at least a half an hour, but an hour is better. So part of the sleep routine that works really well is to take some passion flower tea or chamomile tea along with your melatonin or your sleep herbs and create a little sleep routine for yourself. And this is at least a half an hour, if not an hour, before you go to bed. And many people find that that's really helps them get a good night's sleep. So this concludes our workshop today. Be sure to subscribe. That really helps us. And let us know what you think. For more information, visit our website, getwellfoundation.org. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.